Hello, my name is Shai, and today I will be presenting my MESH project, exploring an ethnographic framework to assess community energy needs. My MESH project focuses on energy poverty as part of a larger issue of energy justice and just transitions. The world's energy resources are rapidly growing, yet energy poverty is still a major global problem. Although energy resources are well studied, there seems to be a blind spot over addressing energy poverty and meeting community energy demands, and more fundamentally, to defining a community's energy needs. Accessibility, affordability, and agency make up a framework to define energy justice. So I believe then that energy poverty can be broadly characterized by energy systems lacking any of these elements of energy justice. However, if I can zoom out for a moment, energy justice is interwoven with many complex systems on a societal scale, and furthermore, energy development and energy demand perpetually make energy poverty a moving target. For my MESH project, I focused specifically on electric infrastructure in California. Partly I made this decision because I have a background working with California utilities, and so I have some working knowledge of how utilities operate in California, as well as standards and regulations. I also decided on this area of focus because I want to build on my knowledge and dig deeper into how communities engage with energy. The motivation for my project is that energy assessments normally do not include ethnographic community data collection besides relatively high-level demographic data. The literature review was significant to this project since it helped shed light on known unknowns, as well as acknowledging unknown unknowns or mitigating unanticipated impacts of energy poverty. What was telling actually, though, was the lack of literature. Just to summarize key findings, there are abundant studies analyzing qualitative and community data, and just as many quantitative energy resource data alongside demographic data. However, there are limited publications and data that combine both qualitative and quantitative data on the topic, including methodology. This is noted in a number of studies. However, based on the publication trends, we do see a growing interest in energy justice research. In order to understand how the missing data can impact energy poverty, I reviewed community-focused data collection and energy resource assessment methods or models. The issue I am focused on is the gap between the two. My goal was to compare ethnographic and technological framings of energy resource management in order to assess the advantages and limitations of each, and especially areas where the two do overlap. This was partly a review of literature and partly a reflection of what tools communities need to address energy poverty and make equitable energy resource management decisions. I looked at several cases that reported energy needs, but didn't report on the subject of community, except for demographic data, and usually superimposed onto geographic data. I wanted to portray how a latent analysis of quantitative data could uncover energy poverty that is masked by data biases, or that fall outside the purview of a specific assessment. Next, to better examine the impacts of data collection methods on energy justice, I interviewed two professionals that both conduct assessments. This allowed me to expand on available literature about community energy needs and incorporate ethnographic data collection into my project. Finally, I also included a case that portrays how a community's agency and self-determination are associated with energy poverty. I more broadly organized the elements of my project into the categories of accessibility, affordability, and agency. These terms encompass elements of energy justice, and for my research, these categories consequentially also represent objectives to address energy poverty. I find this classification of energy justice very useful because it provides a framework to guide more equitable research and data collection. Here's a fairly basic visualization of the accessibility, affordability, and agency framework. The diagram can be filled in with more granular details to construct a more accurate definition of communities and their energy needs. It's important to note that this is as much a tree diagram as it is a Venn diagram. The three categories are quite broad and include many complex systems that overlap. Presumably, realizing all three would contribute to just transitions and equitably address energy poverty. Since the topic of my project relates to data collection, actually, it wasn't always easy to comprehend collecting data on collecting data. Much of my analysis was a result of examining data analysis methodology, energy justice, energy resource studies, and community assessments and census data. Understanding these parameters helped to ground my data collection efforts and also set some guardrails for the types of ethnographic data that is needed. With some framework, one can put together a more effective plan to collect relevant ethnographic data. Leaning into the opportunity to collect my own ethnographic data on conducting assessments, I formulated unique questionnaires for those who expressed interest in an interview. Of 8 requests, only 4 responded. Of those, only 2 were available: Dr. Destiny Knock and Anna Rico. Dr. Destiny Knock focuses her academic research on developing multifaceted energy systems modeling, using a data-driven analytical approach to better assess sustainability factors in energy development. Anna Rico is a community ambassador that is fully engaged with her community. She conducts community needs assessments for various purposes. The data that Anna collects is ethnographic. And her data collection methodology is designed to prioritize community needs and foster a trusting relationship between the community and decision makers. Finally, for my last methodology of data collection, I researched an interesting case regarding structural energy poverty, a 2021 transmission installation on tribal lands, which produced an agreement resulting in tribal ownership of a transmission grid section, a first. Most of my data collection was based on articles and available utility data, as I was unable to reach anyone involved in the project. However, I also went to see the transmission system in person, as well as the reservation, to get a sense of place and better understand the importance of this location and how this huge trade-off reflects the value of energy reliability in this community. In order to investigate the shortcomings of energy assessments, I used several methods of data collection to compare how alternative methodologies and types of data can be utilized to better represent community needs. I believe that energy poverty can have various presentations depending on a community's culture, available resources, and climate. At a high level, quantitative data and modeling for these is used in practice. Then we must ask why energy poverty in various forms continues to go unresolved. To answer that question, I used the AAA framework to assess several case studies. First, I analyzed utility data which revealed several weak points in the assessment that required looking at alternative indicators, specifically related to grid reliability. Importantly, it showed that geographic data can be too broad and misrepresent community energy needs. Next, I interviewed 2 assessment professionals, Dr. Knock, who works in quantitative data, and Anna Rico, who collects ethnographic community data. Both had different contrasting views on how the data reflects the community and how a community is defined. Yet both agree that there is a lack of resources to conduct assessments, primarily insufficient data for Dr. Knock and insufficient funding and resources for Anna. Finally, I looked at a case that was local and interesting to me. In 2021, a grid update was required to increase capacity and handle growing renewable energy generation. Due to the local geography, the best route to install a new transmission line was right through the Morongo Reservation. Tribal communities have historically been unable to become interconnected to the grid. This is largely because of contract issues with major utilities that operate sections of the national power grid. And because they are not interconnected, they also do not qualify for many energy development funding programs, which are often contingent on grid connection. The Morongo Band of Mission Indians collaborated with local utilities to construct new grid infrastructure on tribal lands, and in exchange, the Morongo tribe became operators of that section of the grid. This is actually a remarkable achievement and a first that will hopefully pave the way to address the issue of grid access on tribal lands. In conclusion, I used the AAA framework to assess methodologies and case studies. These ultimately revealed underlying community data, which was not captured in reviews of community energy needs. These results are important because they show that these methods can be used to conduct a deeper analysis and better characterize communities. A more accurate depiction of community energy needs is perhaps the first step in identifying and addressing energy poverty. Hopefully, we can cooperatively use these methods to form a more just assessment of energy needs. Thank you so much for your time. I hope that my presentation left you with some considerations of how energy is viewed in your community.